All right, first slot bomb of the offseason 2025. Completely shocked. I was just explaining to Sam that I was unprepared for this. I did not see this coming at all. I had a hard time sleeping last night, still recovering from surgery. And I take a nap randomly at 10 a.m. because I couldn't sleep last night. And I wake up to texts and tweets saying Mary slot miss, and slot miss came early, assuming this meant that Kevin Durant obviously was traded. And it turns out that it is Desmond Bane being traded from the Memphis Grizzlies to the Orlando Magic. The Grizzlies get Kentavious Caldwell-Pope, Sam's boy Cole Anthony, which I didn't even realize until like an hour after the trade happened that was the case. The 16th pick in this draft. The Suns swap next year, which I believe will be the worst of the Wizards and the Suns. Both teams that we expect to be in the lottery again next year, though.
Yeah.
And then a unprotected first from the Magic in 2028 and an unprotected first from the Magic in 2030. And the Magic get Desmond Bane. So first reaction to the trade, Sam. How are you feeling about it?
So my knee-jerk reaction, I think like most people with this trade, is that's a lot for Desmond Bane. There was some tweets like a second Mikal Bridges tweet has hit the a second Mikal Bridges trade has hit the timeline. And it kind of feels like a little bit like that because I mean, like, there's been some debate about this, but I think the 16th pick in this draft is, I'd say, on average, better than most 16th picks. I think there's going to be a guy in there who, you know, between the guys in this range are like Dominique, what's his name from Colorado State? Why am I blanking on his last name?
Nick Clifford.
Nick Clifford, yeah. Dominique Clifford is going to be in this range. Thomas Sorber is going to be in this range. Rasheer Fleming's going to be in this range. And if anybody drops, Jace Richardson will probably be in this range. Like, these are all really, like, I think, like, 20 and lower is going to be pretty bad in this draft. But, like, getting the 16th pick in this draft, you're still in a range where you're going to be able to make the picks and, you know, do all of that stuff. So, you know, obviously a Suns pick coming in, some of their own picks. I mean, like, Kentavious Caldwell-Pope is a little bit washed at this point, but he's still like at minimum an NBA rotation player, maybe like not even a starter anymore, but he is like a good player. And I think Cole Anthony is like a fine spark plug. So that's a lot for Desmond Bane. But then I think about it a little bit more and I'm like, as the day has gone on, I've been more and more like, yeah, well, why not though, if you're Orlando? Because Bane, we spent all of last pod talking about how open the East is, and we brought up Orlando as someone who's like right there in that tier if they could get a guard, and they get Desmond Bane, who's like a pretty good fit for what they want to do, you know, an off-guard guy who doesn't really need the ball but is really good on offense. He's a solid defender, at least is not going to like compromise your really strong defense. And, you know, they give up their own picks, but like if those picks are good, that's kind of on you. Like, it's put up or shut up time for this Orlando Magic core. So like, who cares about that? And I mean, giving up the Suns pick, I mean, you're getting a guy who's never made an all-star game in Desmond Bane, but he's like the next tier down. You know what I'm saying? Like, he could always have a good year.
A guard in the West. I mean, the bar is so high. You have to be one of the 15 to 20 best players in the NBA to make the All-Star game as a guard in the West. You're going up against Steph Curry, Devin Booker, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Luka Doncic. If he was in the East, he could have made an All-Star team in the last few years. I would say that the bar for him is one outlier. I shouldn't even say outlier because he's an elite shooter. One elite shooting season from him on a team like Memphis or Orlando, you could easily see him making an All-Star game. He's a fringe All-Star. Yeah, he could absolutely make it with a really nice season, complementing the talent they have in Orlando. My immediate reaction was, okay, that is a lot, and then I instantly loved it for the Magic. I've talked about this pretty much the entire offseason, going back to last year, how everyone wants them to trade for Malik Monk, or they want them to trade for Anthony Simons, or one of these guards that is going to give them a ton of athleticism, shooting, blah, blah, blah. But my whole thing, especially since we saw it again in the playoffs against the Celtics in this series that they just played, is that I don't think that you can acquire a guard that will compromise your defense like you just talked about. Like, you need to acquire a guard who is passable on defense that also complements your best players in Franz and Paulo and Suggs now. The Suggs Bane fit is about as perfect as you can get in the backcourt for a team building around these two high-level wings that are going to be trusted with the shot creation, with the playmaking. I think Suggs' shooting is up and down, but has real potential to be like a knockdown shooter off the ball, someone who can extend advantages. He's not going to create off the bounce a ton, but that's fine. He's going to be like your fourth option on offense now. Yep. Bane is slotting in as the third option, which is where he had the best years of his career with Memphis early in his career when Ja was still Ja, and he was slotted between him and Jaren Jackson Jr. And now I feel like that, as that being their core four, along with their rotation of bigs that they can go stylistically a ton of different ways, whether it's Mo Wagner when he comes back from his injury, whether it's Wendell Carter Jr. if you want to go more defensively tilted, also Jonathan Isaac and Goga, who, let's see, I think they might end up trading Goga this offseason. We'll see if they feel fine, or Isaac, one of those two, if they feel fine about the other bigs that they have, Mo Wagner coming back and being healthy. But ultimately, what I land on is that while I do understand that, like, I think the 16th pick is valuable in this draft. Yeah. I do get a kick out of the fact that Memphis literally just salary dumped the 18th pick in the draft.
Yeah.
To get off the Marcus Smart contract a few months early, basically, in order to then turn around and turn one of their best players into the 16th pick of the draft. Plus, obviously, you're getting a few other far out first. But the thing I just want to reiterate here is, like, the Magic haven't had a great deal of whether it's bad scouting or it's bad luck. The Jet Howard pick is bad scouting. Yep. The Tristan De Silva's fine for where he went in that draft, but they were just at the end of that range where a bunch of impact players went. Khalil Ware went a few picks before. Matas Buzelis went a handful of picks before. Jared McCain went a few picks before. And because they kind of got stuck with a guy who's a solid bench player in Tristan De Silva, but probably nothing more, I think that they looked at it like, we need to speed this thing up. And as we've said time and time again, the East is absolutely wide open next year. They can take a step by trading for a player like Desmond Bane. Their core is intact. I don't think they didn't give up any depth in this trade because they upgraded the KCP spot a ton. And Cole Anthony was probably someone that was going to be on the fringes of their rotation next year and isn't on. At the time, I thought it was a fine contract. It's not the worst contract in the world. He makes like $13 million a year. But I do think that the fact that he's not really a factor for them, coupled with the fact that they'll probably try to get a bench creator, whether it's in free agency or with the 25th pick in this draft, I really like this trade for the Magic. And I thought about it because the Bridges trade obviously was the joke that you made earlier. Yeah. But I thought about these pick haul trades, and obviously the Bridges trade still has time to age poorly. There are plenty of trades that have time to age poorly when you're giving up a haul that doesn't end until 2030, 2031. But I thought about it just for now. The Knicks just made the conference finals. They beat the Celtics in the playoffs. They were on the verge of the NBA finals. And I think any Knicks fan would be happy with the result of that if you told them that when the Bridges trade went down, to be honest with you. Now, obviously, knowing what we know now, they probably had a legit chance to win the championship, and you would hope to capitalize on that, considering how the board broke for them and how they knocked off the Celtics. But ultimately, I think that these pick trades have kind of more recently have favored the teams who get the actually good to great player. At least for now. Now, look, once again, this can age poorly, but I thought about it, and I was thinking about going back to the last one that really aged poorly was the Paul George trade. And the majority of the reason why the Paul George trade aged poorly was because Shai Gilgeous-Alexander was included in that trade. Now, also, the Thunder got a million picks between that trade and other trades, so they took enough swings that eventually they hit on Jalen Williams, and he's also an all-star, fringe all-NBA player. So, but I just want to point out here that, like, I think that these teams who have been going for it have actually benefited a decent amount from just saying, fuck it, let's go for it. And I don't really think the downside is really all that much for the Magic here. Unless, like you said, this core just is not good enough. And if this core isn't good enough, you are going to figure that out eventually.
Yeah, I mean, why not? It's a good time to like kind of push the why not push the fucking chips in? You know what I'm saying? Like you have to make this team, because we've always complained about this Magic team, like, God, they're so good on defense. If they could just get a competent guard, you know, and like they brought up the names, like we kicked the tires on Derek White. We talked about Malik Monk. I think it's okay to pay a little bit of a premium and go like a half step higher, which is kind of what they did here, to definitely get a high level, off ball, offensive minded player that is going to address the needs that you need addressed. Like, I think it's okay to pay a little bit of a premium to have those needs addressed. Like, and to your point about like trades not really aging poorly, I think like what's happened is we've gotten into these areas where teams, somebody brought up the Nets Harden trade, and that's like another one where it's like, we've
talked about it time and time again. Like, how many things had to go wrong for that to go wrong? And look, that's the inherent risk with all these trades.
Yeah, that's about as bad. This is about a worst case scenario as you can get with these trades, and it's still like, it was not as damaging as say like the Paul Pierce KG trade. You know, like ultimately, like, because you could still they were still able to flip those guys for, like, even with Ben Simmons like being the return that you got. That's the bigger issue, is that the Harden trade wouldn't have been that damaging if you didn't then trade him for the biggest zero of all time in Ben Simmons. You're like, you know, you still had the value on your team. Like, Harden was still a valuable player. I think this Magic team, as people pointed out, they're very young. Bane turns 27, I think, in 2 weeks.
Squarely in the middle of his prime, basically, because he came into the league a little bit older. Yeah,
he's like not too much younger than like some of these other guys. And unlike, Skeets is in the comments, good thing, but putting out the Dejounte Murray trade, and that's another good comparison for guys who are like at a similar point in their career. I would say kind of a little bit of the difference though is that Bane is kind of a perfect fit, whereas like in the Murray trade,
Dejounte was always going to be clunky with Trae Young and with that team. He didn't address the needs that they had. And also on top of that, like, we haven't seen the full payoff of that, but it's probably going to end up being a few end of lottery in the teens picks because of the quality of the East right now. Now, maybe they decide to trade Trae Young and that looks stupid in a few months, but ultimately the Dejounte Murray trade obviously did not work for the Hawks. But I think that when you consider, you know,
they pivoted out of it though, like,
yeah, and this actually, I would say Memphis and Atlanta kind of parallel each other more than Orlando does, because of the fact that they had these kind of unforeseen things happen with their team, where like Memphis, for example, with Ja Morant, like no one could have predicted this in 2022. If you had told us that Ja Morant was just not the same player, not available, combined with the fact that he has all these off the court issues, like that is just historically bad luck. And with Atlanta on the other side, like basically all of their like 2 through 6 in their rotation, either like Kevin Huerter's just brain broke. So they had to trade him that offseason. DeAndre Hunter could never stay healthy. John Collins was never the same after they paid him. So I look at this Orlando team and I go, they have their core guys in place, and this is a bet on Suggs, Paolo, and Franz. And that core is similar to what Memphis was a few years ago. And of course, there are unforeseen things that can happen, but that doesn't hold you back from making a trade that will improve your stock to win in the East the next 2 years when it seems a little bit more wide open than it's ever been.
Yeah. And I think Skeets' point was, a good one, because like Murray was like brought in to address the defense, and like Bane is, because obviously that was the problem with those Hawks teams, and now this is kind of the opposite problem with this Magic team that's always had an elite defense, but now needs somebody to kind of solve their offense, And And I think, we're going to have to see it in practice. I really like the fit just because Franz and Paolo are so ball dominant, but like Bane kind of has that additive value as like
perfect
an
third
off
option.
ball guy. Yeah, exactly. Like, so
elite catch and shoot guy. You can run plays for him off the ball. And I think he's a little bit underrated as a creator too. Like he's not going to scale up like as we saw with Memphis. He's not going to scale up for a full season. Like you're not going to be able to be like, oh, Franz is out for the season. Paulo, like last year, their disaster year, he would have looked not good. But if you are to say, okay, Franz is out for 2 weeks, can you be the second option? He absolutely can be. Paulo's out for 2 weeks. He absolutely can be. When those guys go to the bench, he absolutely can be with bench units. Like he can run a pick and roll. He's a capable creator. And the thing that we've been talking about Orlando is like, you just need to find someone who isn't the worst defender on the court at all times.
Yeah.
And I think he's a solid to slight positive defender when locked in and in the right context. The last few years, he's been overextended with Memphis where they just have not had the capable perimeter defenders like this Orlando team does. Like Orlando has multiple elite defenders on this team.
He's gonna get the worst guy on like
he's gonna be the guy they target, which is like you can survive that, as we've seen with these kind of defenders that aren't high end defenders, but him or Paulo are, like you said, are one of the weaker defenders, and Paulo has massive plus positional size, and Bane is super strong at a minimum. Like you're not going to be able to bully and switch onto Bane and just kind of, back him down. And he's going to struggle in certain matchups, but also I really don't see this derailing their defense in a way that if they were to acquire any other guard would. So I look at this as pretty much a best of both worlds for the Magic. And I really, really like the fit. And I think about the fact that between Suggs taking the point of attack, the number one option on the other team, whether it's a guard or a wing, he can scale. Franz also great perimeter defender, elite team defender. Paulo and Bane a little bit more limited, but they're going to give you plus value on the offensive end, and they're not horrible defenders. And then you still have this number of different centers you can throw out there for different matchups, whether it's Wendell Carter, who did a pretty good job on defense in the Celtic series when he's actually healthy. And then you also have the option to go to, if you want like a more of a traditional drop big like Goga, or you can have, hopefully Jonathan Isaac can, for once in his career, stay healthy and not look like he did this past year, maybe look a little bit more like his previous self from the year before. And you have another guy that just gives you a ton of different looks that you can throw out there. Really, their only weak defender in their whole rotation at this point is Mo Wagner, I would say. And he's just a bench big that is going to give you additive value on the offensive end. So I like the fact that they took this risk. I like the fact that they pushed in the chips.
Yeah.
And I think that this is, I really don't view this as much of an overpay as other people do. Like, I think this is like, now it's the sticker price is shocking when you read it, but then when you take a step back, you go, okay, well, for what their goals are in the next 2 to 3 years to maximize this before they have to pay all of these contracts, I think this is a perfectly fine swing to take.
Yeah. I just, the more I thought about it, it's like, well, why the fuck not? You know what I'm saying? Because I think the problem is normally when we see a team that was an 8 seed make this type of trade, we're like, okay, so you're doing what to like win a playoff series? But I think we all know the Magic are more capable. I mean, they're still
more like a top 4 or 5 seed that just had a weird year.
It's kind of hard because we haven't seen them. They haven't won a playoff series yet, right? Like, so
we talked about that on the last episode. Yeah.
Just so like, that's obviously going to impact how everyone sees this. But I do think like they are generally closer than that would imply. And the fact that the East has gotten weaker, like both the Celtics and Bucks are missing huge parts of their team already with injury. Darius Garland's not going to be ready to start the year. They could be, it's like not out of the question they're the 1 seed in the East next year. Like, and like that's all, like if you make the finals, you know what I'm saying? Like that's all it takes. They are absolutely in a tier with the Knicks, the Pacers,
the Cavs.
Like the Cavs might be bet. We'll see what's going on with like in the regular season, but like we just saw the Pacers beat the Cavs. Like the Cavs haven't proven their playoff.
I understand, but like
Yeah.
I still think that you win 65 whatever games they won in the regular season, even with the weird playoffs that they had. And I know that they have had multiple playoff runs in a row here that have been disappointing, but I just think that you can't fully count them out when the East is as jumbled as it is right now.
Exactly. No,
there's not a clear number one team like the Celtics last year that are just like running away with the conference.
I will still probably pick the Cavs to be the bet, like to win be the number one seed next year. But it's like if you told me the Magic were the number one seed next year, I'm not going to be like, oh my god, what happened? Like
the Cavs are basically the Super Sixers at this point. Like they're like if the Sixers if Joel never got basically we're like pencil them in for 60 regular season wins and they're probably going to lose in the second round. Like that just that feels like what their destiny is. But who knows? Maybe they make some moves here and they change what their roster makeup looks like, and we feel better about them.
I will say I am starting to think that like the East won't be like terrible the way people think, but I think it will be more like kind of how the West was this year, like but without the Thunder, where there's just a lot of teams that are kind of in the 48-50 win range that are not separated by much. Like because I think the Sixers, depending on what happens with the Sixers, they could be back. You know, like you have the Magic, you have the Pacers, you have the Knicks.
We still also we just have no idea how to gauge it right now because this is the first trade that has been made of this offseason. Yeah. We need to see how free agency goes. We need to see how the draft goes. We need to see how trades go, especially for a team like the Celtics. And I know that they don't have a chance to win the East without Tatum next year. But like if the Celtics go, fuck it, we're going to try to compete next year, like they're still probably going to be like the 7th seed or like they're going to be in the picture. They're too talented.
Yeah. I mean, every non-playoff team in the East is going to be like hilariously bad.
Yeah,
like,
exactly.
I'm not like not making that argument, but I do think that like the playoff teams, like, you know, like, are you like, you just made this joke of that. I'm not like sure the Hawks are going to be terrible again. Like, I think the Hawks could like pretty easily be like a 48 win team next year.
Sam, like, going back for more Hawks, year 4 in a row, baby.
Yoda.
How could this go wrong?
Yeah. Going back for more Hawks. I mean, I'm just saying, like,
so, not sloppy seconds. This is sloppy fourths.
Yeah, sloppy fourths. I mean, like
but the way that the East is, once again, this is more just this to me that says less about Atlanta and more about the quality of the teams once you get past the first few teams in the East. Where you could tell me anyone is the 5 seed next year, and I would be like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Oh, the Bucks, like Giannis just goes crazy.
I think
the Bucks are the 5 seed. Yeah, like
just
even
by
though their
virtue
team
of
sucks,
having Giannis, like they could like Giannis. It's going to be Giannis and janitors, and it'll be fine.
You know,
and Kuzma,
Pistons. Yeah, sure. Where there's plenty of just middling to decent teams that could end up being that 5, 6, 7, 8 range.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I can see the Pistons being pretty good too. And I mean, like, well, we maybe we talk about this at the end, but like also Durant seemed to have put out a leak to directly try to steer himself away from Minnesota because it seems like that's where that's going. So
a lot of people commented, they were like, oh, this episode already aged poorly because the episode we recorded yesterday was about Durant going to Minnesota. And I'm like, well, actually, no, I feel the opposite. I feel stronger that this trade is about to happen. Yeah. And Durant is trying to throw himself in front of it because he wants to go to one of the Texas teams or Miami.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't want to pay income tax. And also someone found a tweet of his from 2009 where he was complaining about how cold it is in Minnesota. Maybe he would prefer to be in a warm weather state. But the thing that I do just want to point out here, a little just a correction we did get some bad slot. Naz Reid is not being involved in that trade at all. I got confirmation from someone else. If they do trade Gobert, they're more likely to pay Naz Reid from what I've heard. So just a little add on there. That was the part that we.
So it's not that. Well, then I don't know what their plan is because why are you cutting? I don't know.
I'm just telling you what I heard, and I very much trust the person who told me.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, if that's the case, then like I don't know, Conley. Like Conley's
you could send
stamp.
Conley to the Nets. Oh, no, I'm not. No, I thought you were talking about Mike Conley. You're talking about Tim Conley.
No.
Mike Conley would be probably added to the Nets or whoever just to make the money work in that trade. It's still a Gobert Dante package to the Suns, from what I understand. And I think that the Suns are trying to use that offer and leverage it against the Texas teams to try to get more out of them and hope that one of them puts something on the table that is significant for Durant so that they can maybe go in that direction instead. How
are you paying the Nets though for being involved?
I don't know. I haven't gotten that information. I'm just telling you that Naz Reid is not involved. That was not good information. So
Nickeil Alexander-Walker signing a trade at that point?
The Naz Reid thing didn't make it. The more I thought about it, the more it made literally no sense. The Nets have cap space; they could just sign Naz Reid.
Right. Well, yes, but then you can also fold him into the deal.
We're not talking about this. It's not. Okay, there's no point. It's not. Sure. It's not happening.
It's not happening. But it is a little interesting. But do we want to talk about Memphis now?
I want to talk about Memphis.
Yeah.
The first reaction everyone seemed to have to this was not what I thought at all, which was that Memphis could now potentially go after Kevin Durant. And I was like, no, this is the opposite. I feel the opposite. This is like a soft reset to what I wrote down was this is either them getting out ahead of this core, kind of like them not believing in Ja anymore, which look, we've heard rumors for a little bit here that they're like, how can we really build around a guy who's not super reliable? And it's either that or they want to retool around Jaren Jackson Jr. and they're going to have to pay him a ton of money. And they want to get a bunch of rookie scale deals around him, and then either Ja or who they get back for Ja. And I'm wondering if the Edey injury was also a factor in this. Not that you care that much about Edey in terms of like you're making your decisions based on that, but like if Edey is not healthy next year because he had this surgery, then you're like, all right, we're starting to get to a point where like we've just been ravaged by injuries for 3 straight years. No. We might need to maximize what we can get for Bane now and then try to open up another window a year or two from now.
And I mean, like, look, obviously I critiqued Memphis a lot for like not seizing their window harder and like becoming the small bean drafting team. Like
then they traded for your favorite player and everything.
Well, they made like the worst. I mean, it never.
No, it's really the funniest possible outcome, in my opinion. That you were. I think you were right, and I think that that trade at the time was okay, and it just went about as bad as it could go because of what happened with Ja, and because Smart fell off a cliff, and because of the fact that he just did not resolve any of the issues that they had with their team. He was never healthy, and then they had to pay to get off of him. Like they basically gave up 3 first-round picks for Marcus Smart at the end of the day, and that is just. You can't recover from that when you also don't have your best player for half of the time.
It also like never really made sense when you already had Desmond Bane and Ja Morant in place. Like you can't double down on another guard. You know what I'm saying? Like I think it was the right idea to trade for a player of like Marcus Smart's caliber, but not at that position. When 2 of your 3 best players are guards. Like you can't have.
If your best player is Ja Morant, trading for a guard who also has shooting problems.
Yeah.
When you just got rid of Dylan Brooks, who's a similar player, but at least is a legit wing size.
Yeah, he's wing size. Yeah.
It
never really. And I mean, like, look, Smart's strong. Smart, like the position that Smart guards the best would guard the best, like outside of like shooting guards, was power forwards. Like it never really made any sense. But so that was like a bad. They made like a very bad bet with their. If they had made that trade for like OG and Anunoby, I think the results would have been a lot different for them as a team. Like, which is, and
they tried.
They tried. Yeah, exactly. I'm not trying to like, they like tried to do that. I think they understood that, but they weren't able to make that trade fast enough. And then they kind of got stuck being like, okay, well, like Smart, this is the trade that we have to, trade. And so here's the thing is now they can kind of get back to their roots a little bit in terms of like, what makes them successful? Well, and I think it's like fine to like retool. I think it's fine now, given that everybody was getting paid. This roster was getting expensive. You weren't going anywhere. Like, why not retool around Jaren? You've identified Jaren Jackson Jr. as your best player. Soft reset. You don't think John Morant's going to be part of the future by all, whatever it sounds like. So you trade Desmond Bane for a really good return. You get a real that pick could be like 7 next year in a really strong draft. Like that's
probably what
thing.
they're betting on, I would imagine. Because I think if I remember correctly, I could be wrong here.
Mm-hmm.
They might also have a Sun swap at some point, or maybe this was the Sun swap they were involved in.
One of the Magic swaps was like a swap that they owed the Magic, so it sounds like that kind of.
It's
like
one of these. This was the swap.
Yeah.
Okay. So basically they just improved on the swap. They
Yeah.
were going to get the third worst out of these 4 picks, and now they're going to get the second worst, which is going to be almost certainly. And maybe they see where the Kevin Durant thing is going.
Yeah.
And they go, they're about to trade Kevin Durant and get worse.
Yeah.